I don't know if you could tell by the way I'm dressed, but it's pretty chilly out. We're gonna fire this thing up, get that mower behind it spinning, warm the oils up in the gearboxes and the cutter bar in it, and get some services done on this stuff. I'm pretty sure that this battery is weak. This battery's new. It's only a few months old. About 4 months old. You can tell that this tractor doesn't have the same power, same low end torque as the 8030, because when you kick it on at low, I mean, it falls hard and then it takes it a minute to rev to get to PTO RPM, but it still runs it, and I'm sure it run it just fine. It's not smoking, but it's also just running the machine. It doesn't have anything really bogging it down at the moment. It does have some blow by, which personally I think that's pretty acceptable amount of blow by for a tractor that age. So we're gonna let that warm up. Like I said, I need to get the gearboxes warm so we can drain some oil out of that thing. These were really simple. So you've got 3 plugs here. This one is what I use to fill. This is what I use as a gauge because that's about where the oil was filled up before. And then this is obviously your drain. Exact same way on this one. As you can see, I've already made a mess. I'm sure that if you turn this 100% to the side, so at a 90-degree angle instead of the way I've got it, you would actually be able to get this off of here and it wouldn't drain onto the metal frame below it or on top of the gearbox below it in this case either. I'll just have to clean that mess up. I did have a drain pan under there, but I needed to move it over here because I was using it for something else. Now this one's a little bit more tricky. You see that drain plug, or this plug right here, this is where I'm going to fill it to, but back here, I think you'll be able to see it right there. Right there is the drain plug I took out. That's what drained all of our oil out of there. I did still make a little bit of a mess, not nearly as bad as it could have been. If you have a little funnel like this, it works pretty well to wedge it under there, and then I have my old drain pan for the lift down there that worked out pretty decent. Now I'm using a pretty simple pump mechanism like this on my bucket with my not my hydraulic fluid. That bucket has 75-90 synthetic gear oil in it. You could use, straight 90 weight or something like that, I'm sure, but this is what I have, and this is what I use in all my other stuff, so I'm not going to change that. Or full. So I don't know how well you can see this, but this is my drain plug. There's a drain obviously up there. There's one on each end. I'm doing the side with the gearbox on it because logically this will be the heavier end. So if the hydraulics do start to sag on me, it's going to lean this way either way. So I'm going to drain that out. I'm going to take the fill plugs off at the top, make sure it's able to drain easily. Now for the cutter bar, I'm going to have to wait because that drain plug I showed you is stripped out. I don't think it was stripped out before. I think it had a little bit there, but there was so much dirt and everything packed up in there that the moisture and the dirt obviously caused some rust and made it to where it was easy for that to be stripped whenever you go to turn it. So more to follow on the cutter bar. Obviously it won't be long, it'll be in like 5 seconds. You guys figure out the answer, but I gotta do some calling around and figure that out. And I also gotta figure out this gearbox on the side. We got some answers. So there is a drain plug and a fill plug. We already found the drain plug earlier, but I did finally find the fill plug. It was right here. So from the drive side of the mower where the gearbox comes down, and it actually powers the header bar, not the second turtle, not the third turtle, but between them. That's where your fill plug is at. But it's towards the back. It's about 2/3 of the way up from the front towards the back. And it's an Allen as well. It is an 8mm Allen. That one wasn't bad. Like I said, I don't think the other ones are bad because somebody stripped them. I think they're bad because they got dirt in there, and then a little bit of corrosion happened, and before you know it, it went from being an 8mm to something other than that because it just rounded it off as soon as I tried to turn it. But we have a solution for that. That little welder behind you, all I did was I welded this nut right here on there. And that is my solution to my problem. I actually already opened it up. So that problem is solved. Now I'm gonna let this drain. As silly as this sounds, I'm not gonna drain this cold. I'm actually gonna fire the tractor up, pull out into the snow, and let this run for a little bit for 10 or 15 minutes. Probably while I change the oil in my niece's vehicle. And then we'll shut her down, bring it in here, drain it all out, and have good clean oil in there. And it'll be helpful for this too, because this box right here, there's not a drain plug per se. The dealership couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure it out looking at the parts book either. There's that filler back there, which is also got the vent tube on it. You just take that out. And then it's got this window here at the front. What I'm planning on doing is I'm going to simply take that out of the back. I'm going to shove this pump right there down, the tube from the pump. I'm going to shove that down in there, pump all that oil out. So that's, again, why it'd be helpful if that is warm, because it'll go a lot easier. It is all gear oil. That's not necessarily, it's not designed to do gear oil, but it's really designed for transmission fluid. Let's get started. Behind the tractor for a little bit. Actually ran it for about 30 minutes, hoping to get above 85. Just couldn't quite do it. It's just too cool out. Don't know how well you can see that, but I've got one side propped up with a jack and a 6x6, and then the other side is just setting down kind of as low as it'll go. It is, I'd say probably 10 or 12 inches off the ground over here. On the other side, it's probably about 16, maybe 18 inches off the ground. So I couldn't get it above 85, but it's warm enough that the oil is going to drain just fine. As you can see right here, it's still draining, and I've even got one end up higher to make sure, well, obviously the end that I don't have draining. I've got that end up higher to make sure that I drain this all out. Now, once I get to 2 quarts, which would be 64 ounces, I'm going to take that and go drain that, or dump that in our oil bin here. And I'm going to put that back under there because it's going to drain all night. It says 12 hours. We're going to give it the full 12 hours, especially since I couldn't get it to the operating temperature. Now, if I got it to the, say 120 degrees or so, where it was draining a little quicker, I may not leave it overnight, but I'm definitely going to at this point. In case you're wondering what the drain plug looks like, this is what it looks like. It does have an Allen head on it. It's an 8mm Allen head. And what I did to get this off was I actually ended up welding a nut to it. Now, I didn't weld it super solid because I really didn't want the nut to stay on there. I was just hoping I'd get it off of there, and it did. Once I got it off of there, the little bit of residual left around from the weld was actually enough to hold this. So I was able to use the Allen wrench to back it off, and I doubt it'll be enough to tighten it. I'll probably have to weld something back on, but honestly, I don't think I'm going to put this one back on. I think what I'm going to do is order a new one from AGCO. That way I don't have to worry about this the next time. The fill plug up here, that was easy. I was able to get the Allen key in there, and it held just fine, took it right out. Now over here, roughly right in there, on the side of this gearbox, I took the breather off. That is what they're showing as the fill tube. So I took that off. This is my sight glass right there. That's kind of bright for you guys probably on the camera, but it is filled with oil. That oil definitely looks darker than all of the other ones. What we're going to do is we're going to take that pump, put it in there, and just pump that out. I would highly recommend wiping off whatever you're going to stick in that gearbox, because you don't want to introduce any dirt in there. Oh, yeah. You can see that oil looked pretty rough. Like I said, I don't think it's been changed. I don't think it's been changed before. And maybe they never changed it because there's not a simple way to drain it. That's very possible. Like if I didn't have that pump, I'm not real sure how I'd drain it, honestly. But it's obviously important that we do it. The bar oil looks pretty good though. That's reassuring to me. All the diffs, so this diff, these two up front, those all looked great. The oil, it didn't need changed, but we're already there, so we changed it. Now, I will do this annually. When I talked to the dealership, they said some people do it annually, said some people never do it. Obviously, never doing it, wrong answer. I don't know what the right answer. I don't know what the right answer is. I know I'm not going to let mine just be the same oil forever. We only cut about 100. I think this year we cut a little over 100, but that was because we were helping someone else. On a normal year for us, we're going to cut right around 120. Now that we have the new hayfield and everything else going on. But that's how it's done. Let's top these off. I don't know how well you can see this, but we are just a tickle above 64 ounces. And you can still see that it's still draining right there above it. I'm going to pull that out real quick, dump it into the into that drain pan right there, and then I'm going to put that right back under there. Now this doesn't look terrible. You see when it pours out, it's actually in pretty good shape. I don't know why it looks so weird whenever you have it in the bowl or in the container there, but it was actually pretty clean oil. So, like I said, not terribly worried about this. A lot of dirt in there. That was probably already in there. And then we're just going to leave that right there overnight. All right, so now that it's empty, we're going to leave this sit overnight. It does say to wait 12 hours. So let it drain for 12 hours after warming it up. And that's what we're going to do. So tomorrow we'll come back out here. We'll slap this back together and get it parked back where it belongs. Now I can obviously get it higher off the ground if I really want to, but I'm not going to. It's more than enough angle that it should drain out just fine. All right, next morning we've got just under a half a quart, which makes sense because we drained a little over 2 quarts. So like I said, this takes 2.5 quarts of gear oil. So I'm using 80-90, but I mean, I'm sure you can use 75-90 or even straight 90 if you wanted. But I need to get this filled up. So let me get some oil out here and we'll measure it out. You can't tell. We ended up using an electric pump to push fluid into there to fill that up. And this part's proven to be a little bit of a pain in the butt. Trying to tighten this down. This is the vent, which is also doubling as the fill cap or fill port. And we got it. So all I did was put it back into the, I was aiming for covering up the same amount of threads as it had exposed whenever I took it out. Ended up having to use channel locks and a pipe wrench. Basically you can turn it so far, but then you need a pipe wrench to turn it back to where you can use the channel locks again. You can only use the pipe wrench in one little area, which is ironically the one spot you can't use the channel locks. So now the other thing I did, so I can fill this back up while I'm waiting for my new one. This is that junky, not junky I guess, it seals like it should, but this is the fill plug that obviously is stripped out. You can see all the spackles from the weld on it. What we're gonna do is we're gonna put this back up here and top of on the fill side, mainly because this is easy to get back out, and then I can put this whole thing back together, put the plate back on and everything else. All right, so I went ahead and thought this through a little bit and decided I would warm my oil up. That's a heat exchanger, and the heat coming off it's about 130, 140 degrees. Makes it to where this gear oil, so I know this says that it's 10W30 or 5W20, whatever it says. It's not. It's actually gear oil. I measured it out. So 2.5 quarts is what needs to go back in the spar. That's what we drained out of it as well. So just want to make sure we put back in the appropriate amount. Like I said, I put the bad one up on top here. I'll get a new one and replace it